As part of Go Beyond Grades, a national summer learning public awareness campaign, Learning Heroes has created a new resource to help families with what they need to know about their child's reading, including questions to ask your child's teacher at the end of the year. I am so excited to introduce Tori Filler, a national reading expert and former teacher, who's here with us today to focus on 3 key questions to ask your child's teacher and why it's important to ask them. So Tori, welcome. Let's jump right in and tackle the first and perhaps most important question. Is my child reading at grade level?
Yeah, so we're used to seeing reading grades, writing grades. This is a really important question to ask. Is my kid reading at grade level? And that's because each grade has sort of expectations for the difficulty of text that kids should be reading. And we don't always get that information through grades, how our kids are doing with those kind of books. So especially if your kid isn't reading grade level books without support just yet, ask more questions, figure out what's going on. You can ask about foundational skills, more on that in just a minute. Also ask about vocabulary and comprehension, figure out what's up and what support they're already getting at school.
So the second question, you mentioned foundational skills. It's important to ask, does my child need support with foundational skills? Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, this is a really important question. These are really the building blocks of reading, and there's fancy words to describe these things, but you can ask your child's teacher about oral language or spoken language and sounds. Ask how your kid is doing with phonics. That's how letters in words make sounds, building up to reading, and fluency, reading accurately, reading smoothly, reading with expression. Especially for our early readers, you should be able to get a list of sound and spelling patterns. That's sounds and how they map to letters that they were taught. So for example, they may have been taught that the letters A-I in a word like rain have the A sound. And we can build on that over the summer when we know what sound spelling patterns they were taught and which ones they're still working on. I'd also always recommend asking teachers if you might be able to get access to activities or books or workbooks, anything that matches what your kid was working on this year that they might be able to send home to support your summer practice.
I'll be using all of these strategies with my 5-year-old, especially over the summer. So the third and final question, can you tell me how our school teaches reading? Does our school use a curriculum based on research? Tell us what that means.
Yeah, this is really all about finding out the approach to teaching reading and writing and literacy at your kid's school. And so especially when kids are learning how to read, you really want to know that there's dedicated time for those foundational skills we were just talking about. You want to hear words like systematic, structured, explicit to describe how those foundational skills are being taught. And it's definitely a flag if you hear something like phonics is sort of woven throughout our day, but it's not really a focus for our early readers. You also want to know, what are kids reading? What kind of books are they reading? And what are they learning about? So every single kid should have access to those grade level texts that we were talking about. And make sure, even if your child needs more support with reading, that they're not being limited to easier books. You also want to know, what are they learning about the world? So you want to hear about the specific topics that they're learning about. Maybe it's civil rights leaders, maybe it's animal habitats. You want to know what knowledge they're building. And how are they using that knowledge when they're reading, when they're writing, and when they're talking about what they're learning? So asking these questions, I think, is a good way to know what's happening in your school. Are they teaching reading in a way that's aligned to research? And also a great way to sort of build on what's happening during the school year over the summertime.
Thank you so much, Tori. We know some schools have an end-of-year parent-teacher conference, but the majority don't. So it's so important for us as parents to be proactive in reaching out to our child's teacher, even for a short conversation, so that we know how to best support our child over the summer. And want to encourage families to go to gobeyondgrades.org for more information.